Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In the early hours of Florida mornings, between 1923 and 1951, neighbors near Homestead occasionally heard the sounds of stone grinding against stone in the darkness. In the daylight, they saw the results: massive coral rock blocks, each weighing several tons, precisely carved and fitted into walls, towers, and furniture. But no one ever saw Edward Leedskalnin work. Not once in 28 years. Leedskalnin was a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant with a 4th-grade education and a broken heart. He had been jilted by his teenage fiancée the night before their wedding in 1913, and he spent the rest of his life building a monument to her in southern Florida, a structure of approximately 100 tons of coral limestone, carved and assembled entirely alone, with hand tools, using methods he refused to explain. When engineers later examined his work, including a 9-ton gate balanced so perfectly that a child could push it with one finger, they struggled to explain how it was done. Leedskalnin claimed to have rediscovered the secrets of the ancient Egyptians. Others have proposed anti-gravity, magnetic levitation, and lost ancient knowledge. The reality, as best as anyone can determine, may be stranger and simpler than any of those theories. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The sky was the original clock, calendar, and map. Before writing, before money, before cities, human beings looked up and organized their lives around what they saw. The position of the sun at solstice told them when to plant and when to harvest. The rising of specific stars marked the seasons. The phases of the moon governed ceremonial calendars in cultures from Ireland to India. Our ancestors were not casual observers of the night sky. They were meticulous, obsessive, and precise in a way that rivals modern astronomical science. This precision is encoded in stone at sites around the world. Newgrange in Ireland is aligned so precisely that sunlight enters its inner chamber only during the 5 days around the winter solstice, and it has done so every year for more than 5,000 years. The pyramids of Giza are oriented to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Stonehenge tracks both the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset, as well as the 6-year lunar cycle. These alignments are not accidental. They were engineered with mathematical precision by cultures we have long underestimated. What drove this obsession with celestial mechanics? Partly practical. Agriculture depends on knowing the seasons, but partly something more profound. Ancient cultures believed the sky was alive, that the movements of stars and planets determined the fates of kingdoms and harvests. In this worldview, encoding celestial cycles into permanent stone was not merely useful but sacred. The great monuments of the ancient world are, among other things, the most durable clocks ever built. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Edward Leedskalnin was born in Latvia in 1887 and emigrated to North America after his fiancée Agnes Scuffs cancelled their wedding in 1913. He eventually settled in Florida City, where he began quarrying and carving local oolite coral limestone, beginning work on what he initially called Rock Gate Park around 1923. He lived on the property alone, charged 10 cents admission to visitors, and refused to allow anyone to watch him work. He never explained his methods to anyone. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered, in 1936, Leedskalnin moved his entire structure, by then several hundred tons of carved coral, approximately 10 miles north, to its present location near Homestead, Florida. Neighbors reported seeing trucks loaded with stone blocks making the journey, but no one witnessed how Leedskalnin loaded the massive stones onto the trucks. A neighbor who tried to observe the loading found Leedskalnin had stopped work and was waiting patiently for him to leave before resuming. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The completed structure contains approximately 100 tons of coral rock. Individual stones weigh between a few hundred pounds and 30 tons. The most celebrated feature was a 9-ton gate, a single coral block balanced on a steel rod pivot, so precisely centered that a child could rotate the gate with one finger despite its enormous weight. The gate operated perfectly for decades before the bearing failed in the 1980 and required professional restoration. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Leedskalnin published 2 booklets during his lifetime, Magnetic Current and Cosmic Force, in which he described an alternative theory of physics in vogue, elving north and south magnetic poles as the fundamental units of reality. The booklets are internally inconsistent and do not constitute coherent physics, but they fed speculation that he possessed secret knowledge of energy manipulation. He died in 1951 of kidney failure, having told no one his construction methods. His estate was worth $3,500. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Wally Wallington, a retired construction worker in Michigan, began demonstrating in 2005 that a single person using only wood, gravity, and basic mechanical advantage, no special knowledge required, can move and precisely position stones weighing up to 19,000 pounds. Wallington built a small Stonehenge replica using these techniques alone. His demonstrations showed that the physics of one-person megalith construction are entirely achievable using principles known for thousands of years. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Photographs of Leedskalnin's equipment, taken after his death, show a simple wooden tripod derrick, a chain hoist, and hand tools. The coral limestone he worked with, oolite, is significantly softer than granite and carves readily with hand chisels. Leedskalnin was a trained stonemason from Latvia, where stone construction had a long tradition. He had 28 years, unlimited patience, and no deadline. Engineering analysis consistently concludes that conventional mechanical methods are sufficient to explain the entire structure. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Leedskalnin used basic but ingenious mechanical advantage, tripod derricks, block and tackle, leverage, and gravity, techniques that scale well to a single determined person over a multi-decade project. Wally Wallington's 2005 demonstrations proved the concept empirically. On this view, the mystery is not the physics, but the extraordinary dedication. One man, one heartbreak, 28 years, and 100 tons of stone as the only response he could conceive to grief. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Leedskalnin discovered or rediscovered a principle of magnetic levitation or anti-gravity that allowed him to neutralize the weight of stone blocks, his own claim in cryptic form in his published booklets. This explanation has no physical basis and is contradicted by the photographic evidence of his conventional equipment, but it remains popular in alternative history communities who connect his work to pyramid construction theories and lost ancient technologies. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the structure was built with assistance, multiple people working at night, and Leedskalnin maintained the fiction of solo construction through secrecy and careful management of when visitors were permitted. This hypothesis explains the practical construction logistics, but is contradicted by the consistent testimony of neighbours over nearly 3 decades who describe hearing one set of sounds from the property and never observing any helper arrive or depart. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Wally Wallington's 2005 demonstrations remain the most compelling evidence that solo megalith construction is physically achievable. He moved a 19,000-pound concrete block using only wooden poles and the principle of using small movements to reposition a stone's center of gravity incrementally. He subsequently built a scaled Stonehenge replica, moving and erecting all stones alone. His methods require no special knowledge, only patience, physics, and a willingness to work very slowly. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the 1986 professional restoration of the 9-ton gate, the most celebrated feature of Coral Castle, required a team with a crane and modern equipment. When engineers opened the gate assembly, they found a simple steel rod pivot running through a truck bearing. The gate's perfect balance was the result of precise geometric centering, not magnetism or supernatural force. The bearing had worn after decades of use. Once replaced, the gate turned freely again, a purely mechanical achievement. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed Leedskalnin's published booklets on magnetic current are not coherent physics and have been examined by physicists who find no testable claims or novel principles. They are the writings of a self-educated man with unconventional intuitions about electromagnetism, not a technical manual for construction. The consistent engineering conclusion reached by multiple independent analysts is that Coral Castle required no secret knowledge, only the mechanical principles of simple machines applied with extraordinary patience over nearly 3 decades. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Coral Castle is a Florida state historic site and tourist attraction near Homestead, drawing visitors who come for the mystery as much as the structure. Engineering analysis consistently supports conventional mechanical explanation. Wally Wallington's demonstrations have not resolved the popular fascination. Many visitors prefer the magnetic levitation theory regardless of evidence. Leedskalnin's 2 booklets remain in print. The structure itself is genuinely remarkable. Whatever method he used, one small man with hand tools and a broken heart produced a monument that has outlasted its builder by more than 70 years. He built it for Agnes Scuffs, who never came to see it. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis. And the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Coral Castle, how one man secretly built a 100-ton stone monument alone, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Coral Castle ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.